The BDS movement was initiated in 2005. BDS movement is the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel. It had three main objectives. The first one is to end the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, to bring equality to Palestinians inside Israel and end the apartheid system, apartheid and discrimination system against them. The third objective is to implement international law in as far as Palestinian refugees are concerned. So the objectives of the BDS movement fall within international law. The idea of BDS is to pressure Israel to comply with international law. The movement is a non-violent movement. It uses non-violent tools by basically trying to pressure Israel economically, academically, culturally, and in the sports area. The fact that the BDS movement is actually an anti-racist movement, it upholds universal human rights.
So when you say it's anti-racist, it's not an anti-Semitic movement? I mean, it's not trying to undermine Israel or Judaism or the Jews at all?
It tries to undermine the system of colonialism practiced by the Israeli government. But it doesn't try to undermine Judaism or the Jews or actually anybody else. It does try to undermine the system of colonialism, as very much humanity had tried to undermine and succeeded the system of slavery, the system of international colonialism by the British, by Europe in general, also the system of segregation in the US South. Utilizing these principles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you see parallels between what happened in the U.S. South's history, the history of South Africa, and you see that as sort of the inspiration, the model, the example for BDS?
Certainly. Okay. It's a system, it's a movement that's trying to bring justice using ethical and non-violent means, in the sense that in the Deep South there was, in the US Deep South, there was a system of discrimination, a racism, a very racist system. In South Africa, the apartheid system. All of these systems have been, in a way, ended and deconstructed through collective effort that has utilized and, in a way, targeted racism as a fundamental injustice.
Now, why do you call it racism? What is so racist about what Israel is doing with their security, or I could say, so-called security measures? What is racist about that? Forgive me.
The colonial reality in Israel, one, in a way, description of it is racist because it is targeting the Palestinians.
Didn't you say something about there being 50 laws being different that apply to Israeli citizens versus Palestinian citizens? And could you explain that, please?
Yes. Inside Israel, for Palestinians living inside Israel, there are 1.8 million Palestinians who are citizens of Israel. For those Palestinians, there are 50 laws that discriminate against them. So if you are a Muslim or Christian, which happens to be the Palestinians, laws apply to you differently from Jews. And this is, according to the UN, is apartheid. When a system is structurally racist, racism, we know, exists everywhere. But when it is structured within the law, it becomes apartheid. And this is why we call Israel a racist apartheid system.
Is it apartheid, or is it colonialism, or does it depend on where within this geographic area we're talking about?
Israel does practice apartheid, and it does practice colonialism, in the sense that it is dominating the lives of the Palestinians, appropriating the resources, ethnically cleansing the Palestinians. That is colonialism. displacing the Palestinians of their land, exiling them. That's all colonialism. Apartheid is implementing laws that are differential between various groups. In the West Bank and Gaza Strip, Israel has a colonial system. Within Israel is practicing apartheid against Palestinians.
What about the notion that this is the historical land of the Jews and they have returned as promised? What are your thoughts about that? What do you say?
I mean, we all have our stories in a way, and I think this land has always welcomed people from all over the world to come and live. The issue is not problematic because the Jews have decided to return to Palestine. That is not the issue. The issue is by the return of the Jews to Palestine, mostly for reasons that have to do with Europe rather than the Bible, have to do with the Holocaust and the racism and discrimination against the Jews in Europe. What the Jews have done in 1948 with the establishment of the State of Israel, they have not just come to live in Palestine, they've come and they displaced the Palestinians, and that's colonialism.
When you say displaced, could you give me an example of that?
When
because you have demolitions and settlements, how does that, what
and
is that
driving people at gunpoint from their villages, from their homes, from their cities, and driving them out. That's what the Israelis have done to the Palestinians. The Israelis and Jews from all over the world did not come to live in Palestine. They've come to take the land of the Palestinians, displace the Palestinians, kick them out of their homes. That's what has happened. And that's the problem. The problem is not with the return of the Jews. The problem is wanting to create an exclusive community of the Jews. This land should be the land of all those who live in it. Should not be the land of an exclusive one group or another.
Now, what about the issue of, and I've fallen victim to this myself, and I said this to you earlier when we were talking, with the meeting we had, the whole idea about Palestinians as the terrorist group, because the PLO used to be labeled a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department, but that's no longer the case. They've taken on more of a political disposition, and we also now are looking at, this BDS movement as a non-violent. What are your thoughts about the history of any, the acts of violence as opposed to what you're pushing now, which is a non-violent act? What are your thoughts?
In a way, we have engaged in a process of resistance to colonialism, which is actually our right according to international law. Now we are trying a non-violent mechanism of resistance, which is pressuring Israel locally and internationally to comply with international law. This mechanism actually has been more fruitful in terms of Israel feeling the heat. And
it's been more fruitful than acts of violence.
Yes, indeed. Okay. It has been more fruitful. Yeah. It has been also more enabling, not just for us as Palestinians, but for organizations, institutions, individuals, conscientious people around the world to actually engage in this process of decolonization.
So I know you have to get going, and I've been recording for almost 9 minutes, but one of the thoughts I've had about this is the manner in which that in the United States we have a handful of people who abuse guns, but they get all of the attention. And it seems to me, from what I've seen here in my 4 or 5 days so far in Palestine, what it seems to me is that you had a handful of people who engaged in violence, but they then got all of the attention, just like our people with gun violence get all of the attention with guns. But the vast majority of Palestinians, just like the vast majority of gun owners, are law-abiding people, and that's the way we should be going right now. So anyway, well, thank you. It's 9.5 minutes into this recording, and I just wanted, like I said, get a little summary of what we chatted about earlier, and so thank you so much for this. And I apologize the camera couldn't record your face properly. It's just that the light in the background, and so anybody who watches this, I apologize you couldn't actually see her, but yeah, thank you so much. All right, take care.
Thank you.